Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. When I started off as an entrepreneur, I was all about helping people to understand grief and giving others tools so that we can manage it in a healthy way. And because of the state of our world and the state of our country, I feel like I'm being taken back to the early stages of why I decided that I was going to jump out and do my own thing and help other people. So what I want to talk about in this video is what's happening right now, because it may feel a little confusing and most definitely feels uncomfortable. That's because we are all experiencing collective grief. You know, I used to always tell people that our grief may be packaged differently, but the pain is the same. That's how we are all connected as humans, is through our suffering. But up until now, whenever I would tell people that, I was talking about our individual experiences. And because they're all different and they're unique, we may feel like you may not understand or you don't get my pain. But again, it doesn't matter how different they are, whether it's because of your childhood or relationships at work or what have you. The similarity is we all know what pain feels like, even if it's packaged differently. But this collective grief that we are all going through right now around the world is because the root of our grief is the same. Now, our grief is going to show up in many ways, and that's why I want to do a video about this. Because if we can acknowledge and accept our grief up front and we know what to do with it, we'll be more considerate and understanding of others and ourselves. And if we recognize that we're all grieving this massive, enormous change and that we're living through it together, I know that we can come out better and stronger, both individually and collectively. So let's talk about how to process grief. As messy as it is, we have to face our grief. We can't suppress it, we can't numb it, we can't ignore it. The first thing we have to do is to face it and choose to do so in healthy ways. Sometimes that means crying or journaling or praying or meditating or exercising or talking to someone about it. There are so many different things we can do to process our grief in a healthy way. Right now, in my opinion, I think the best way to process is to share with each other by talking about it just openly. And when you do that, grief will lose its power. See, grief likes to isolate us, and we're already being asked to social distance ourselves. But talking candidly to one another will help us to stay connected. Now, again, we all may be going through different parts and feeling different effects from this pandemic, but we are united through it. So it's not going to sound crazy when you call a friend and say, hey, I'm really afraid about the stability of my job. Or things are awkward with other kids in the neighborhood when I have to tell them to stop knocking on my door because we're not coming out. Or I'm trying to not freak out in general. Y'all, keep it real with your friends. Right now, we need to lean into that vulnerability because we are all going through this in some way, shape, or form. So first, accept and process the weight of your emotions in a healthy way. Then the other part of acceptance is choosing how grief is going to impact your life. Right now, guys, we're in the early stages of feeling grief, and I think it's going to get heavier and more complex because the harsh reality is there's going to be a lot of deaths from this virus. There's also going to be a lot more changes and losses, which, by the way, I always remind people that grief is not always tied to death. Grief comes from all types of losses and changes, especially rooted in uncertainty. So when you go through something like moving or losing a job or losing a friendship and you wonder why you feel that deep sadness or anger or honestly just moody, that's grief. So please remember that grief is not always tied to a death. And that's why all of us are experiencing collective grief during this global pandemic. So many different losses and changes are happening at rapid pace, and more are going to come as a result of the current season that we're in. But back to my point, the way that we respond to it is what's going to define this moment in history. How you respond to your own unique grief is what's going to define you as a person. It's what's going to define us as a nation. It's also what's going to define us as a human race, because everyone in the world is being impacted by this virus. So you have to intentionally think about how you're responding. Yeah, it's going to be really hard to get through this. We can't candy coat that. But how are you going to respond to it? That's your choice, and that's your responsibility. You can either become bitter, angry, critical, judgmental, cynical because of all this, or you can choose to be a better person, more compassionate to others, more patient with people, a more flexible boss, more loving as a spouse, more fun as a parent. All of this is up to you. It's totally within your control. Can you control the coronavirus and all the damage that it's going to do to the world? No. But can you choose how it impacts your household and how it impacts you? Yes. Guys, I want you to start thinking like this because seriously, we're at the beginning of this grief journey together. And if we can understand that what we're experiencing right now is a collective grief, then we'll be able to get through this with a healthier perspective, with intentional actions, and with a compassionate heart for one another. So really quick, I just want to talk about what you may be experiencing physically and mentally with grief, because it's a lesson that I learned through my own experience. I thought something was wrong with me, but it was really just grief. And right now, you may be experiencing some symptoms, thinking that something's wrong with you, or maybe even thinking it's the coronavirus, but it could be stress and grief. Things like headaches and shortness of breath, yes, those are very serious symptoms that could be the COVID-19, but those are also symptoms of stress and anxiety and grief. So here's how you should pay attention to the differences. If you notice that you have a headache, is it a dull headache or is it a sharp pain? See, what I notice in my body is if it's a sharp pain, it usually means that something's wrong, like I'm coming down with a sinus infection or it's some sort of physical ailment. But if it's a dull headache that just lingers and I kind of feel like tension down the back of my neck and definitely in my shoulders, that is usually tied to grief or stress for me. And it may be the same for you, so I just wanted to point that out because I know that headaches is one of the big symptoms that they're talking about with the coronavirus. See, the more that you're consumed with negative news and the more toxic conversations that you're engaging in and the more stress that you're causing on your body, you are definitely going to feel it physically and mentally. Another side effect of grief is cloudy thinking. You may find it hard to make decisions or stay focused. I used to call this the fog because I literally felt like I could not see 1 or 2 feet in front of me. And because of everything that's been escalating over the last couple of weeks, headaches and the fog have hit me really hard again, especially this week. I realized, wow, wait a minute. I'm grieving. My body is responding to the overload of stress that has been dumped into my world. And by acknowledging my grief, it helped me to not spiral down an unhealthy thought cycle. So in addition to washing our hands and using hand sanitizer, like our lives depend on it because it really does, this is also a great time for us to be super vigilant about taking care of our bodies. We need to make sure that we're getting enough sleep, drinking a lot of water, getting some vitamin D by going outside, and yes, in a smart, responsible, social distancing kind of way, but vitamin D is really good for you, so you've got to get some sun if you can. But also make sure that you're eating fruits and vegetables. See, the point is take care of your body. Because when you do, you are helping to keep your physical health in balance. All of the toxic emotions and stress are going to wear on you. They actually weaken your immune system and release chemicals that are not good for your body. So you have to be able to reverse that with good, strong, healthy habits. Now, I know I just dumped a lot of information on you, but here it is in a nutshell. Accept your grief, process your grief, and choose how your grief is going to impact your life. We're all in this together, guys. This collective grief is real, and we need to do our absolute best to handle it in healthy ways. We get to choose how we're going to let this experience define us. From this pandemic, the ripple effect is going to be felt all over the globe. It could be bad because of all the misinformation or neglect, hostility towards one another, or irresponsible behavior. Or it could be good because of the choices that we're making, like being there for one another, creating positive solutions, and adapting with grace. You're responsible for your health, your mental health, and your physical health. You can't worry about everyone, and you can control no one, but if we all do our part, we're going to come out on the other side of this stronger than before. We're going to get through this, guys. I know we will. Remember, you've gotten through every single one of your bad days before, and now we're going to get through this together. Okay, friend, if you found this helpful, please go ahead and click the thumbs up. While you're down there, subscribe and click the bell for more positive information like this. Also, if you have any questions, definitely drop those below in the comments so I can answer those for you. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.